At right now, Drake, Miami and Louisville. Could they possibly be going to the Big 12 with the Big 12 helping pay their way?
I don't see this as a crazy possibility, as many do. And the reason being, Miami, they want to go to the Big Ten. Miami wants to go to the SEC. The SEC is not interested. And the Big Ten, by and large, is also not interested from a lot of the things that we've heard. And inside the Big 12 on Twitter, or Greg Pflugar, you talk to some of these expansion reporters and those who are really well connected, have their ear to the ground. They talk about how Miami is not in a position with what have you done for me lately to grow into the Big Ten. Now, I also, don't get mad if you're a Miami fan, I also don't think that Clemson is SEC ready or Clemson is Big Ten ready. Reason being is they've had effectively one. They had Danny Ford a while ago. They've had one good head coach in college football, Dabo Swinney, who, has dominated there for 15 years, but what happens if they become Tom Osborne in Nebraska? And when he leaves, the valuation for the school goes way down because Dabo Swinney's gone and they can't win at football anymore. That's what Miami is facing. Yeah, they had some awesome runs in the 80s and into the 90s, early 2000s, even Howard Schnellenberger starting things off there. But we're not the Miami of old. Fans aren't showing up to games. The NIL may be strong, but the Big Ten and the SEC don't really want to bite. The Big 12 is going to be there, especially if they start investing in private equity with more money, with more prowess than you expect. So the first thing, that's my first point of emphasis. Miami, accept the fact the Big 12 might be your landing spot. My second point would be, that's not the Big 12 that you know. It's not like, oh, the Big 12's that dilapidated, forgotten. No. Brands like even Arizona, we don't talk about a ton, are still super strong. BYU is growing a bit. And ESPN and TNT, they like the Big 12. Fox, they like the Big 12 conference. What you'll have to kind of shift your view on is the Big 12 being this little man in college football. Once this 2030 TV deal comes around and ACC schools are jumping away from the conference as Clemson and Florida State exit, the Big 12 is going to become a much bigger power in college football. You need to reimagine this league, not as the little brother as they've been in the last couple of years, but as a budding, emerging star, because Brett Yormark is a very powerful business mogul that will get them there. So Miami coming is not the worst thing in the world. Louisville being right there with them, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech. The possibilities are endless. I think the short list starts with Louisville, Miami, though.
It would surprise me. Like if I'm talking in full transparency as somebody who doesn't even like Miami, it would surprise me if they landed there. If Yormark was able to pull that off, because I think Miami's destined for the Big Ten is my personal opinion. If he was able to pull that off, I think that would be absolutely massive. I think that could also be huge for Miami and with respect to Miami would immediately, now whether or not they lived up to this would be an issue, and I hope the Big 12 fans don't get mad at me for saying it. Miami would immediately be favorites in that conference year after year. With the way that they've recruited in the ACC, they would immediately be favorites. Now, Utah was a favorite last year.
Yeah, there you go,
doesn't
right?
mean anything, right? Like I'm not telling Big 12 fans that Miami would come in and just dominate you immediately like maybe a Clemson would or whatever, right? I'm not trying to paint that picture. But I do think that Miami would immediately be favorites. Their talent composite would be the highest, if not one of the highest in the conference. And they would have an opportunity year after year after year to just be right there for the college football playoff. I don't know that same path exists in the Big Ten or the SEC. I'm not telling you that I think Miami would come in and dominate, but I think their path would be a lot easier, as it is now in the ACC, if they were to go to the Big 12.
That's where I'd push back a little bit there. I do agree it's easier to compete in the Big 12 than it is the Big 10 or the SEC. I think that's become objective, and I'm fine, even though I host Locked On Big 12, relenting that. But the Big 12 it's better in football. It's deeper in football than the ACC. I mean, last year, we looked around the ACC, we're like, the top end of this conference hasn't played a single ranked team. Even Clemson's down. You're looking at the ACC going, wow, you get past like the third team in the league, and shoot, we're not really seeing a ton of production here out of your Wake Forests, your NC States, your Boston Colleges. Yeah, the Big 12 has a handful of those for sure, and the back end of our conference could get better. Cincinnati's been dilapidated their first 2 years in the conference, but they also went to a college football playoff. We've seen potential. Houston won 12 games just 5 years ago. We've seen potential out of the lower end of the conference, whereas in the ACC, did you know, this is a wild poll, this is also CW Lambert, that Virginia has played just one game on ESPN or ABC since 2019? Did you know that Wake Forest has played 2 games on ESPN or ABC since 2019, and that Boston College hasn't played a single one in ACC play on the networks? That just goes to show that Miami would come in with an opportunity to compete, but they haven't been dominating the ACC, and there really isn't a great talent pool in that conference.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the opportunity would be there. I couldn't guarantee it because I haven't seen Miami run through the ACC like they should have been with the talent that they've continued to have, right? They do seem like they're on the upward trend. I don't love that, but it does seem like they're on the upward trend. And, I think if you're a program and you can get to 10 wins and feel like that's disappointing, that's probably a good sign for where your program is. A lot of teams in the country would love 10 wins every year. And so we'll see where Miami lands this year. But yeah, I think that opportunity would be there, but they'd have to go out and prove it. And they, unfortunately, for them, haven't done that yet in the ACC. I do think the Louisville, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech angles are really strong. I think Virginia's probably power two, destined to for the Big Ten or the SEC. But I think if you could pull Virginia, the basketball that comes with that too, yeah. I think that could be a really big one for a conference that does really well in hoops. I don't know if they're there yet or not. Pitt, obviously, rekindling the West Virginia stuff would make sense geographically. I think they make sense too, kind of that Midwest vibe that you've got up there with Cincinnati and WVU. But I do think that there's definitely an opportunity, like we talked about in our first segment, which I'll link at the very end of this. I think there's an opportunity for, Clemson, Florida State, maybe North Carolina, maybe one more program, even if it is Miami, go to the SEC and Big Ten. There's an opportunity for the Big 12 to absolutely, that would be kind of that would be the put the ACC on life support. The Big 12 could just finish them off by taking that next run, whether it's, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, these teams that we mentioned, to where then what's your best NC State? I think NC State would be a good fit for the Big 12. I think they'd be a very good fit with basketball too. Baseball's got a really good program too. Finished second in the ACC this year. And I think that would be, the SEC and the Big Ten could deal a pretty serious blow, but I think the Big 12 could just finish off the ACC at that point.
That would be the goal. If you're Brett Yormark, now take less competition, and less competition there's more money for you. And that is because ESPN no longer has a contract with the ACC in that event. And the money there can now go to the Big 12. Or look, some of that money will certainly go to the SEC. It will certainly go to the Big 10 when all this shift is happening. But it just means that the Big 12 conference in general can have more. And Washington State and Oregon State look at the ACC and they see Boston College and Wake Forest and say, welcome to the club. Syracuse, welcome to the club. You guys are no longer Power 3 conference contenders because you're just not in a conference that has that kind of weight, and you have to find a new home. And, man, that's where you get into the semantics of that part of the conversation of you're denying some college programs the opportunity to compete at the highest level. You're kicking them out of, you're kicking Syracuse, Boston College, Wake Forest out of major competition. And then on the flip side of that, man, capitalistic mindset in this country and this economy, this is when money matters and all. What are we losing? What are we losing if Wake Forest isn't competing on the national stage every year? Based on what I just told you about having 2 games on ESPN or ABC since 2019, we're not losing much. We're not losing much from a capitalist view, and that's the way we have to view college athletics. Do you think it's killing it? Yeah, it is. It's definitely killing it the way that we've always known it. But it's also dwindling it down to this elite group of Nick Saban. He's mentioned it, 40, 50 schools that will be on the national spotlight.
I would assume one of those 2 games was the Florida State game in 2022 when both teams were ranked. I was at that game, so I didn't watch it on ABC, but I did watch us lose. And then I would venture to guess that the other one was against Clemson at some point when I think Wake had a 10-win season at some point in between that stretch. And the aspect of this that we didn't mention is that what would that then do for the college football playoff auto bids, right? Does the ACC go down to 1, the Big 12 go up to 3? Like that could certainly help. And then you think about the money that comes in because of that would be pretty huge as well. If you missed the first part of this where we talked about maybe Florida State and Clemson getting a bit of a reprieve and some help from the Big 12 as well. I know that's crazy. You can click the video on the screen right now to watch it. Drake, we talked about this last week, and boy, people were not thrilled with this topic, but we're going to double down anyway because my Liberty Flames have rekindled my joy of watching A&M